This weekend in the Premier League, we had a clash of two of the most interesting teams we've seen in recent years. Unai Emery's Aston Villa and Ange Postecoglou's Tottenham Hotspur. Both teams are here to upset the apple cart, to upset the natural order of things, the top four, the title race potentially, as well as the run-in for silverware. And with both teams this year now competing in European football, with the Champions League with Aston Villa and the Europa League with Tottenham Hotspur, this was a game that I've been waiting for since the fixture list was made, to see where these two teams are this season versus last year, because both teams have promised to develop, both teams have promised to lift their game, and both teams have promised to deliver their fans some long-awaited glory. In the video today, we're going to be breaking down what we've seen from Aston Villa and Tottenham in Tottenham's 4-1 win in the Premier League this weekend. At any point in the video, if you do laugh, you learn, you like something or whatever, please do like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this, and get into the comment section on this one and let me know what your big takeaway was. If you're a Villa fan, where was the disappointments, where was the letdowns for you? And if you're a Tottenham fan, what do you really think made the difference in this one that really brought the side to click and, really get the result over the line? And yeah, let's just get stuck straight into this one, because both of these teams from a tactical level are always really interesting to watch. Tottenham this year have had a nice kind of adaptation, a nice evolution on Ange ball from, the lessons and, the learning opportunities that Ange and Tottenham had last year. And Aston Villa are going from strength to strength. They've been really busy in the transfer window, and we always know with Unai Emery and Aston Villa that they've been really good at playing the occasion, at picking the best team for the opponent that they're playing against to maximise the result. Actually, coming into this game, I thought Aston Villa might have just edged it. My prediction for this game, I'm sure, was a draw in the end, but I didn't see Tottenham winning this one as convincingly as they did. And when we look at the way both teams kind of lined up, it wasn't really too much of a surprise the way Aston Villa lined up, but with Onana, Tielemans, Ramsey and McGinn as the midfield four, i.e. no Leon Bailey, I did think that this might suffer from a little bit of pace in transition to actually get up the pitch in numbers and try and exploit the space that we all know Tottenham do leave, especially when they're at home, especially after they've been on the attack. But when the Tottenham team came out, we knew that Van de Ven was going to be missing and Dragusin deputised. Otherwise, the front three and the back four was probably what you expected. Kulusevski starting this one definitely surprised some, with Maddison expected to start this. But seeing a midfield duo of Sarr and Bentancur definitely lifted an eyebrow for me, because what we've seen from Ange this season is a clear two midfield kind of system, depending on who the opponent is. Are they home or away? Do they expect to dominate the ball? Do they expect to have a bit more of a fight in the middle of the pitch? And generally speaking, if we see Bentancur start, we've seen Maddison partner Kulusevski, and they've been both allowed to go forward and be much more attacking midfielders. But generally, when we see Sarr playing, we've had Bissouma in this role here, and the two of them double up as like a double pivot, and they're a bit more focused on recovering the ball, protecting the ball, and really just letting the likes of Udogie and Porro go forward and support the rest of the attacking players in the team. So to see Bentancur and Sarr start this one, it did feel to me that this was a bit more of a bespoke approach from Tottenham, and I think that's really what we've seen as the game panned out, because this midfield from Aston Villa is very, very clever. They're all very good at interchanging, from playing defensive, playing deep, and, bursting forward and attacking, as well as getting into different pockets of space to receive the ball and then allow other players to pick up dangerous spaces to then, try and feed the attackers going forward from there. But really with the, Ramsey's quite nippy, don't get me wrong, but with the kind of lack of pace, the lack of a winger in this kind of setup, it really did feel that Aston Villa were rather narrow, and we didn't really see them too often exploit those wide areas. Even Rodgers, when he was picking the ball out in little pockets, he wasn't really hugging the line too often. Not that you really see this from him often, but these are the spaces that generally Tottenham do leave, and I just don't really think Aston Villa had anything to try and exploit that at all. And it meant that, Tottenham were quite happy. They were quite capable of keeping the ball, of keeping the game in this kind of centre channel, where really the entire game was taking place. And this was a game where I didn't really feel there was too much open cut and thrust in the wide areas. Everything was much more of a central battle in the middle of the pitch, trying to turn over the ball, trying to keep the ball, and, winning free kicks and that kind of thing being the main currency of the day. Now, I was really hyped. I was really set up this year to play Football Manager 25 and, get back on the horse. It's been a good, maybe 8 or 9 years since I played Football Manager, but sadly, as many of you guys know, they will not be releasing a new version of the game until maybe March this year. They might even just slide it off into Football Manager 26. So I've partnered up and I've started playing MFL, Meta Football League. Meta Football League is a football management engine football manager game where the clubs, the players, everything on the platform can be bought and sold for real money, because the leagues that your clubs compete compete in, compete for real money as well. It's a really immersive, customizable experience that I've had a lot of fun with already, naming my own club, building my roster of players, and it goes above and beyond some of the normal football manager mechanics where you actually are a bit more of an agent, a bit more of a director of football, where the players that you buy and you sell and you trade against, you know, you can put lovely fun contract clauses against them where if they leave your club and play for someone else and then maybe that person goes on and wins a division, wins a big bucket of money or whatever, if your player was involved and you've got the contract set up, you know, you get a nice little dippy, you get a nice little cut of that thanks for being the agent of the player that brought them through their club. I've had a lot of fun with it. I've unboxed it on the channel and I've got more videos on the channel explaining how to play it and get up to speed with it. If you're looking to play a football management game for this season, there's a link in the description of this video that will get you set up with all the beginner bonuses and all the goodies that you need to get started with. And for me, like, the thing I really enjoy about it is it's like playing Football Manager until like the 10th season and the whole game is just full of regens. None of the players, none of the clubs or anything in the game is like based on real life, as it were. But when you get into that situation, it's much more like fantasy. It's much more like fantasy football where it's like your club, your players, and you know, you go on this kind of journey of success together with them. So I've really enjoyed it and I recommend you give it a look. And it didn't take too long before the scoring was opened, and wouldn't you know it, Tottenham go and concede a set piece, which you just feel the egg on the face of Ange Postecoglou. But a very interesting statistic came up in the Tottenham game when I was watching it on TV, and it was the amount of times that Tottenham go behind and then eventually come back to win. So you definitely felt that although Aston Villa scored the first goal, that wasn't going to be the be-all and end-all of the match. Tottenham still had a fight to play, still had a fight to give, still had a match to play in this one to try and pull it back. And Villa, although taking the lead and having that early advantage, it really did feel that they were a little bit slower than Unai Emery normally is to try and read where to exploit in the opposition, to really double down and really to lean in to any advantage they get. One of the things that I thought would have separated the teams is the goal scoring prowess of Aston Villa. Generally speaking, under the Unai Emery era, getting them to score 2, 3, 4 goals a game is somewhat achievable, fairly normal. And with Tottenham last year, they kind of struggled to break the 2 goals a game mark. They did do it a few times, but it wasn't a regular occurrence, it wasn't as regular as it was for Aston Villa. And for me last year, that was really the difference in the two of them. So to see Aston Villa take the lead, you're then thinking, okay, they're maybe going to score another goal or two. What did Tottenham actually have to offer here to try and get back into the game? And it really felt that Aston Villa were just a little bit too deep in this game. Even when they went 1-0 up, I'm thinking about Bentancur especially. The amount of times where he was on the ball and he didn't have that much pressure on him. One of the main criticisms I've often had of Bentancur is his ability to really cover ground and really get around the pitch. And in this game, he wasn't really forced to do that. He was quite comfortable operating in this kind of centre zone here, and he was actually pretty good at getting across the pitch and snuffing out counter-attacks, and he was always available to get on the ball. But it just felt that Aston Villa really didn't put this Tottenham back line under enough pressure to really ask them enough questions. And, you know, you only need to see how the second half started. Tottenham come out firing, come out swinging. Son crosses the ball in for Brennan Johnson to get the equaliser, which was absolutely fantastic. And this is what I mean about Emery being a little bit slower, because at 1 each, at 55, 56 minutes, Ange Postecoglou makes a double change that definitely caught me by surprise. We see Bentancur coming off for Bissouma, which wasn't too surprising. What was much more surprising was Son coming off for Richarlison. And what was even more surprising was Richarlison was still kind of operating in this area here. And I think the way that Ange seen this and the way that Tottenham were able to actually get away with this is because Matty Cash wasn't really bombing on forward and really asking a lot of offensive questions. He was more in here as a proper right back. And Richarlison, like, although he's not lightning quick, he is strong and he does have like good technique, good finishing and crossing and all the rest of it. And, you know, Son obviously gets the assist for the Brennan Johnson goal, does really well to get by Cash, plays a brilliant ball in. But I felt that this extra muscle here might have been a bit more of having a second forward on the play. Although Richarlison does get the assist for the third goal, quite similar to the way that Son got his assist, I thought that we might see this become a bit more of maybe like a front two. Maybe Kulusevski might have peeled out to the wide left. We still had Brennan Johnson out wide right. I thought this might have been something that we might have seen, but no, it was actually just stay as you are. With Bissouma and Sarr in the middle ground here in the engine room, it just made it even harder for Aston Villa to get across the pitch, to carry the ball from back to front. And although Richarlison wasn't quite in as like this secondary striker, his pace and his power, his strength, alongside Kulusevski in here, it gave Aston Villa an extra handful when you've already got Solanke up here. But before Tottenham takes the lead, we see Cash come off for Diego Carlos down to an injury, and we see John Duran, the super sub, the guy that always comes off the bench to get the game-winning goal, it feels like, coming on for Rodgers, who was the player with pace, was the only player here. Maybe Ramsey had a bit of it to do as well, but was properly trying to get the ball from midfield into the forward area. And this, for me, just it didn't really feel like proper Unai Emery Aston Villa. You know, we didn't see an injection of pace. We didn't really see a big change up. You know, going to this kind of much more tighter kind of back four. Yeah, I suppose Lucadinha did have a wee bit of width to offer in this game. It really did just play into Tottenham's hands for the most part. And once Solanke's hit the double, he's made it 3-1 to Tottenham, is when, you know, in the 80th minute, Unai Emery has kind of clicked onto this and he's made these changes. McGinn comes off for Bailey, Tielemans comes off for Kamara, and Ramsey comes off for Philogene, in a move that makes it a much more kind of balanced midfield. We actually have some players in the wide areas with pace that can be a bit more direct and try and actually feed these two strikers that we've got on the pitch now. And when I seen these guys coming on in the 80th minute, I just thought Unai Emery's just been caught cold here. He's been caught too slow to action, too slow to read the way Tottenham had kind of grinded back into the game, the way they had kind of just bulldozed their way back into the match, really, despite Aston Villa taking the lead. And despite the match, like, you know, there was a bunch of chances for both teams. There was free kicks and corners, quite equally spread amongst them both. And, you know, normally when Aston Villa are leading a game, or they're in cruise control like that, they've been very good at managing the game, keeping the result in their own hands and pushing the envelope, you know, scoring those extra couple of goals to make sure they get it. But it just felt like these were the changes they probably needed when it went to 1 each, or maybe even when it went 2-1 down. Now, I know 2-1 and 3-1 was very quick, and maybe there's a little bit of that to factor into this. But we see Richarlison pick up an injury, which was quite surprising and quite disappointing for him. He comes off for James Maddison in the 82nd minute, and we see Udogie come off for Archie Gray. Which, with 10 minutes to go, it does feel like a more mature Ange Postecoglou approach, because at 3-1 up, you know, I don't know how many Tottenham games we've seen under Ange where they have had like a 2-goal advantage and maybe the game gets brought back to a draw, or they're winning by 1 goal and maybe it turns around and they lose the game. And the thing with Ange at Tottenham is it's very much like a Jekyll and Hyde. 1 week everyone loves them, they're going to go win a trophy, they're the best side they've ever seen at Tottenham Hotspur, and another week it's like they want him sacked and he can't adapt and he can't defend set pieces and all the rest of it. But what you get with Ange is unadulterated attacking football. And even with this mature approach where he's brought on Bissouma, he brings in Gray later on, he's been forced with the Davies substitution of course as well, but by still bringing on Maddison for Richarlison, who's probably the best option at that time looking at the bench they had, they still could have maybe brought on someone like a Bergvall, who's much more of a central player. They maybe could have brought on Mikey Moore, who's like, yeah, a very similar player, but a much more exciting young academy prospect of a winger, or maybe even Timo Werner for Richarlison. But by bringing Maddison in here, by bringing in Gray, again, they were just really concerned with protecting the centre ground. And, you know, it paid off absolutely fantastically for Maddison scoring that free kick right at the end there, just to give a real gloss on the result and really send the Tottenham Hotspur fans home, you know, grinning ear to ear, and sadly sending the Villa fans back up the road none too displeased. But this is an experience that Villa fans are not used to, so I don't think they'll be too upset by it. I don't think they'll be hanging on to it for too long, with them having Champions League action coming up in the midweek. But for Tottenham, with them now just knocking out Man City of the League Cup and having a great result against Aston Villa like this in the league, it feels like everything's moving in the right direction for Tottenham, where they might actually go on and perhaps win the League Cup, perhaps have a very significant formidable run in the Europa League and maybe do something there, because everyone's hanging Ange's words over him that he'll win something in the second season. And I think some of these tactical developments, some of these different decisions he's made versus decisions we've seen him made in similar situations last year, I think it really does paint it quite rosy for Ange and how it's going to actually pan out this year. As long as, you know, like Romero went off injured in this one, so did Richarlison. Son's just back from injury, so they are still wrestling with, you know, the squad not being fully fit and firing. But for Aston Villa, it did feel a bit more like just a bad day at the office, where they showed up with a game plan. They were expecting it to be a bit more typical Tottenham, where it would be totally wide open end to end, and maybe just Watkins and Rodgers and one other player in support like a Ramsey or a McGinn or an Onana might have been enough, but they were probably going to rely upon the artillery of Tielemans to open up some counter-attacking opportunities. But Tottenham weren't going to be mugged off that easy. You know, they adapted their style of play. They knew what Aston Villa were going to bring to the party. And looking at the head-to-heads, it's not actually that much of a surprise. This Tottenham, Ange Postecoglou's beat Aston Villa 4-0 last year at Villa Park, having lost at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium last year to Aston Villa by 2-1. So it's not a total surprise. This Tottenham team has scored quite well against Villa in the past, but I do think the style of play, the way the game actually panned out, Aston Villa scoring the first goal, I think this was a real mature, a bit of a coming of age performance for a lot of the Tottenham team. We see when Son get subbed off, how disappointed he was, and you could see him mouthing on the bench like, why why me? You know, he didn't understand that at all. And at 1 each, you know, we can maybe all understand where he's coming from here, but seeing the game pan out to be 4-1, it just further underlines that the manager has got his finger on the pulse. He's got a real good read of the game. He knows his squad really well. And I think he was just quicker to act than Emery, and he really stole the initiative in the game. And ultimately, that's what's turned the tide for Tottenham in this one, because on the balance of play, really, there wasn't really that much to separate them both. Tottenham had 16 goal attempts in this game, Aston Villa 12. Tottenham ended up having 6 shots on target with the 4 goals going in. Aston Villa only 1 shot on target. They had 8 shots off target, so did Tottenham. 14 free kicks each, 6 corners to Tottenham, 4 to Aston Villa. It was a really, really tight game in a lot of ways. And if we look at the match ratings for the game, so this is all the players' scores from 0 to 100. And the main things that are captured here is successful actions. You know, duels won or lost, possession won and lost, successful passing. What kind of passing are we talking about? Is it long? Is it into the final third? Does it create a big chance? Etc, etc. So the deeper the green score, the more good stuff they've done. And the more kind of between that 40 to high 50 mark is just, you know, they've done their job. They've been going around it. And really looking at the whole Tottenham team here, the only players that have really went above and beyond are the ones that got involved in the goal contributions. Brennan Johnson with a 71 out of 100. Solanke 82 out of 100 with his, you know, 3 shots on target and the 2 goals that he scored being a big part of his scoring profile. Outside of the guys that got involved in the goals and the assists and whatever, it's Papa Sarr that's come in with a 58, the most prolific, the busiest player on the pitch. 2 interceptions. He's won 3 duels, but he also lost 6 duels, so that's negative -3. 59 passes, 29 of them in the final third. No tackles won, but a few effective clearances, which is good for that kind of defensive box-to-box player. Udogie on a 47 with 2 tackles won, which is fantastic. He's won 3 duels, having lost 6 again as well. 2 interceptions. Nice passing statistics, and he's got into the final third for 2 attempted assists in the end, which is great. And Pedro Porro with 2 tackles won, 4 effective clearances. Again, he's actually won his duels. He's won 4, lost 2, so that's +2. 1 interception. Passing stats are good enough as well. And in the final third, 7 balls into the box for Pedro Porro. And then when we look at the Aston Villa team, yeah, we've got Morgan Rogers with the goal. But otherwise, the busiest players in this game, Pau Torres has got an error led to goal. Emi Martinez has conceded 4 goals, of course, which has really hampered his rating here. But we're looking at Ezri Konsa again. 2 tackles won, 2 effective clearances, 5 duels won, 0 lost, which is incredible. 2 interceptions, nice passing stats as well, although not high volume. And again, yeah, he's not really done anything. Sometimes we see Konsa maybe break into the opposition half and be quite formidable in that regard. Tielemans is normally the star man. He's won a tackle, made an effective clearance. Duels are -1, 2 interceptions. And the passing, again, it's just really low volume on the sort of stuff we would expect to see from him typically. In the final third, 3 attempted assists, 5 balls into the box is pretty nice. And Matty Cash, by the way, 2 tackles won, 6 duels won, an interception. Really good defensive performance from a guy that we normally associate with his attacking contributions, you know, especially last year under Unai Emery. I can't remember how many goals he scored, but it was something like 5 in the first 6 games or something like that. I think he got a hat-trick, if memory serves me right. So a totally different Matty Cash performance, which I suppose is a nice kind of breath of fresh air situation. Ramsey with a tackle, 2 interceptions, 3 positive duels. Again, the passing stats are okay there, but really low volume for what we normally expect from Ramsey. And it was just much more of a game, a little bit more of a ping-pong match where really everyone struggled to get it out of this zone here, to link up multiple passes, to really string open some play and then try and exploit the ball into some space. It really just turned over a lot. There was a lot of stoppages, throw-ins and free kicks and whatever. And that really did play into Tottenham's hands throughout this game. Now, at point of recording, it's still Chelsea 0, Man United 0 at this one. I just wanted to come on and talk about this as soon as the game was over. But after 10 games played, Aston Villa are in 6th, Tottenham are in 7th. There's only 2 points to split them. And you know, the Aston Villa fans on my channel recently have been giving me a bit of heat in the comments section for, I've not been naysaying anything, but for me, like, Aston Villa have been incredible to watch so far this year. It's been incredible the results they've got. They've lost to Tottenham and they've lost to Arsenal, and that's it. They've been beating everyone else. There's been some narrow draws in there as well. But one of the things that I'm seeing, or I think I'm seeing with Aston Villa, is I think they're at their peak already. I don't know if this Aston Villa team can play any better. And as the fixture list piles up, as the season drags on, as injuries start to happen, and loss of form, fatigue, suspension or whatever, it's hard to imagine this Aston Villa team has more gears to go up. But if they do, they could seriously be title contenders. Maybe not this year, but maybe in the following year, because they've got so many right things in the right places. And if they do actually have more gears to go up from what we've seen already, it's not a wild stretch of the imagination to see them break into that top 3 segment, especially seeing that Nottingham Forest are sitting up there right now, and maybe improve on last year's results. This time last year at Christmas, we were talking about maybe Tottenham and Villa being involved in the title challenge, and Villa felt like the closer team to that. And if they can bridge this, if they do have another gear or 2 to go up, they might have done that, but I've not been too convinced by it. And I think this game does lean into it. I do think Aston Villa are at full revs. I think they're at maximum capacity at the moment. And that's great. They're doing fantastic. They're going to do well in the Champions League from all accounts. And I'm sure they're going to be right in amongst the top 4 battle again, no doubt about it. But I thought there might have been some mad progression that we've seen this year where they might sustain that challenge a bit longer throughout the season, and it could be extra historic for them. But for Tottenham, the focus is winning a cup. They're not going to win the league, but they still need to be in this top 7 picture. I think anytime Tottenham are not in this top 7 picture, they're 8th, 9th, 10th, or anything lower than that, is when the pressure builds. Ange is going to want to really push that League Cup challenge forward now. He's really going to want to make sure that the Europa League isn't getting any banana skins in it. They can go as far in that as possible, but they also need to dovetail. They need to couple that with a good league standing. And I think this result, on top of the Man City one last midweek, is going to absolutely jet fuel them full of confidence for this run-in that they've got coming up, because across all competitions, this is a very important segment of the season we're coming into for Tottenham, Aston Villa, for everyone that's competing on multiple fronts. So Tottenham came out of this 4-1 winners, and I don't really think there's many, if any, positives to take out of this for Aston Villa. And I think Tottenham not only take the 3 points out of this, they take a little bit of, I don't know if bragging rights is quite the thing I want to say here, but it's more than the points. It really is a bit of a proof in the pudding, as it were. Because I say the good results we've seen from Tottenham, we've seen a nice evolution on the mistakes that were made last year being corrected. And this game was an absolutely fantastic example. A game they lost 2-1 last year, they now win 4-1 this season. And with 10 games played in the league now, and with Champions League, Europa League, and all the other cup competitions like fully up and running, it feels like this is the beginning of, the madness season that is European football. And I'm looking forward to following these 2 teams as well as the other ones we do on the channel even closer over the next couple of months or so. I hope you enjoyed this one, guys. Don't forget to get into the comment section of this video. On screen are now some other stuff that I've made that YouTube thinks you might enjoy. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button on this one. Stay out of trouble, and I'll catch you on the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.